Welcome to this session. This is Mr. Ogeno. Last time we were discussing the factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis. Now today I want to carry on by investigating the requirement for the same factors for photosynthesis. Now the first factor that I want us to understand how it works during photosynthesis is carbon dioxide. Now we know that the plants make their own food by the use of inorganic materials like light. We talk of carbon dioxide and water. So we want to know the truth about this particular statement. So we know that the end product of photosynthesis is starch. Therefore, that is what we are going to use as a test to observe that this factor here is really needed for the process of photosynthesis. So the first thing that you need to confirm that carbon dioxide is needed for photosynthesis, we need to have a potted plant. Now, this potted plant must have an average of 2 leaves so that we can use one leaf as the experimental leaf and then the other one as a control for the experiment. So the first thing that you need to do, you must make sure that this plant here do not have the starch in it, because that is what we are going to observe at the end of the experiment. Now, how do you make sure that the plant do not have starch in it? The first thing, you are supposed to discharge the leaf. Before anything, you are supposed to discharge the leaf. That one means that you have to make sure that the plant do not have the starch in it. So how do we do that? Now, this one is done by keeping the plant in a dark place whereby it cannot access light. Why do we do this? Now, we have to keep the plant in the dark place for an average of 24 hours so that there is no photosynthesis taking place in it. Number 2, we do that so that any starch that was stored here will be utilized so that the plants do not have starch in it. So that is the first step, and we call the process discharging, done by keeping the plant in the dark room for 24 hours. Now the next things that we need to do in step 2 is now to rearrange the experiment with the plant that do not have starch in it. So how do we do that? We have to take the 2 leaves, and these leaves will be identical in that they have got same factors constant in them, with an exception of the carbon dioxide being regulated. So we regulate carbon dioxide by putting the leaves in a flask. So we have got the 2 flasks. So this particular leaf here, we have it, the experimental leaf, with potassium hydroxide. And then you cork it completely so that there is no entrance of any other gas. So this potassium hydroxide, its purpose here is to absorb carbon dioxide. So generally, this particular leaf here will not receive carbon dioxide. Then we must have another leaf that is used as a confirmatory test, what we are calling control experiment. So that leaf will be basically having distilled water. We know that distilled water cannot absorb carbon dioxide. So this particular leaf here is likely to receive carbon dioxide because distilled water is not able to absorb that. Then we are supposed to take them to the light, whereby these particular leaves are having all factors needed for photosynthesis, with an exception of our experimental leaf that is only missing carbon dioxide due to the fact that the potassium hydroxide in it has absorbed that particular carbon dioxide. So leaving this particular plant with all factors being made constant for all of them, we are supposed to wait for a period of 3 hours. Then we test the 2 leaves for starch. In our test, we will realize that the test for starch in the leaf that was in the flask with potassium hydroxide will indicate that the color of iodine, which we are using to test for starch, will remain the way it is. This is to show that photosynthesis did not take place here because the carbon dioxide was absent. Therefore, we don't expect starch to be visible here. And that is the reason why the color of iodine remains brown. Now, in the control leaf, this leaf received every factor. Therefore, the test for starch in this leaf will be observed that the color of iodine will change from brown to blue-black. a clear indication that this leaf has carried out photosynthesis, and therefore starch was formed at the end of the process. So that is how we confirm that carbon dioxide is really needed for the process of photosynthesis. So I want to urge you to remember that this particular potassium hydroxide can be used, any hydroxide, because the hydroxide has the ability to absorb carbon dioxide. We can use the one for calcium, we can use for potassium. That particular hydroxide, its purpose is to make sure that all the carbon dioxide is absorbed, and that is the factor that we are investigating. Thank you, viewers, for this session.